While I was recovering in the hospital, my parents and sister had taken my 7-year-old daughter on a camping trip to Sunset Valley. That night, I received a call from her. She was crying uncontrollably. "Mom, I can't find the tent. I'm scared. No one's here." I froze. I called my parents right away. My mother answered with a chuckle. "She's fine. It's about time she learns to stand on her own 2 feet." Then my sister chimed in casually. "Relax, my kids are safe with me. She'll survive." But the next morning, everything changed. Both of them came to me, faces pale and voices shaky. This time, they weren't laughing. They were asking for forgiveness. The hospital was quiet that night, eerily so. The rhythmic beep of my heart monitor and the distant footsteps of nurses were my only companions. Tubes ran from my arms and painkillers dulled the ache in my side, but nothing could numb the growing anxiety clawing at my chest. I hadn't heard from my daughter all day. Then my phone rang. A weak, trembling voice crackled through the speaker. "Mom, help. Tent is gone. I'm all alone." My heart stopped. "Sweetheart? Where are you? What do you mean the tent is gone?" I forced myself upright, ignoring the sharp pull of stitches. "They left me," she whispered, sobbing. "Grandma, Annie, they left me here alone." I woke up and the tent was gone. I could barely breathe. My 7-year-old daughter, Emma, was camping with my parents and my sister while I recovered from surgery. I had hesitated letting her go, but they insisted. Said it would be fun and good for her. I never imagined. I called my mother instantly. She picked up on the third ring, laughing. "Oh, she called you?" "She's being dramatic," she said casually. "She needs to learn to be independent. It's just one night." "One night? Are you insane?" "She's a child," I screamed. In the background, my sister chimed in with a smug chuckle. "Relax. My kids are fine. Maybe Emma's just too sensitive. Not our fault." I couldn't speak. Rage filled my lungs like fire. I hung up. The night was endless. I couldn't leave the hospital until morning. I called the park rangers. I called the police. I begged them to search the area. And all the while, I couldn't stop picturing Emma, cold, afraid, alone in the woods. But when morning came, something unexpected happened. There they were. My mother, my sister, standing at the foot of my hospital bed. Faces pale, eyes wide, trembling. They didn't look smug anymore. My mother's voice was hoarse, nothing like the woman who laughed just hours before. We didn't know. We thought it was a joke. But when we came back, she was gone. My sister was crying. The tent really was gone. Not just hers. Ours too. Everything. It was like someone took it. Or moved it. "And Emma?" I asked, barely able to speak. "We found her, but not where we left her," my mother whispered. Something moved her. She was in a different part of the forest, wrapped in a blanket that wasn't ours. They were shaken. More than shaken. Haunted. They begged for forgiveness, falling over their words. "We didn't mean to. We thought she'd learn. Please forgive us." But I didn't answer, because behind their frantic eyes, behind their guilt, I saw something else. Fear. Not of me, not of what they'd done, but of something they couldn't explain. And I knew right then, justice had started moving, and it would not stop. Not until the debt was paid in full. Emma didn't speak for a full day. She sat beside my hospital bed, clinging to my hand, her wide eyes fixed on nothing. Her little fingers trembled constantly. The nurses tried to coax a smile out of her with juice and cartoons, but nothing worked. Something had broken in her. I stroked her hair and whispered, "You're safe now, sweetheart. Mommy's here." But I wasn't sure if that was true, because when I asked her gently, "Where did you sleep last night?" she only said one thing: "The lady with silver hair." My blood ran cold. "There was a lady?" I asked slowly. "Who was she?" Emma nodded, still looking far off. "She found me when I cried. She said I didn't deserve to be left like that. She told me not to be afraid anymore." That was the first time she looked me in the eye. She said she watches everything. Before I could ask more, she fell asleep in my arms. Later that evening, while Emma napped under a nurse's care, I met with the ranger who had found her. He looked disturbed. "We found her about a mile away from the campsite, wrapped in a blanket," he said. "A blanket?" I asked. He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. It was hand-woven, old-looking. Symbols stitched into it, moons, trees, and a silver owl. Not something you could buy from a camping store. "That's not ours," I said immediately. He nodded. "Didn't think so. There are old stories from around that forest. Locals say strange things happen there. Mostly just superstition, but I've never seen a kid survive a cold night alone like that, especially not without a scratch." I stared at the image. The blanket looked handmade, delicate, yet somehow ancient, timeless. "Do you know who left it with her?" I asked. He hesitated. "She said it was a woman. Pale white hair. Tall. That ring any bells?" No, it didn't. But something about it echoed. Like a name I once knew but had long forgotten. Then he added, "Your daughter was lucky. But I'd keep her close. Some places don't take kindly to cruelty, especially not toward children." When I returned to my room, I found my sister sitting there, alone. She looked wrecked, eyes bloodshot, mascara smeared. Nothing like the smug woman who laughed at my daughter's cries the night before. "I don't know what's happening," she said, voice shaking. "It's not just the tent. Our car, it wouldn't start. Tires were shredded. And then last night, my son said he saw something outside the tent." My heart beat faster. "He said it looked like a woman in the trees," she whispered. "Watching us." Her eyes were glowing. And then she was gone. I didn't say anything. Not yet. 'Cause something was shifting. Something ancient. It wasn't just about my daughter anymore. It was about justice. about a reckoning. And whatever force had wrapped my child in safety wasn't finished. Not yet. The hospital walls felt colder the next day. My mother refused to leave the waiting room. She sat rigidly in a plastic chair, arms folded tightly across her chest. My father was nowhere to be found. When I asked, she just shook her head. "He went out for a smoke," she mumbled. But he didn't smoke. My sister stayed in my room, barely blinking, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Her 2 children were quiet, unusually so. The youngest, 4-year-old Mia, kept looking at the window. "Mommy," she said in a whisper, tugging at my sister's shirt. "The white lady is outside." My sister turned pale. I walked to the window but saw nothing but the parking lot below. The street lights flickered. The wind carried a strange scent like pine needles and ashes. That's when my sister broke. "She's real," she hissed through tears. "Whatever Emma saw, whatever Mia sees now, it's real. We shouldn't have left her, okay? We thought it would toughen her up. That's what Mom always did to us." My breath caught. "You left her on purpose?" She nodded, ashamed. "It was Mom's idea. She said Emma was spoiled. That you were making her soft. She told me, let her face the dark. That's how children learn." I stared at her, horrified. "She's 7. She was crying and begging when we walked away. I told Mom we should go back. But she said no. That the forest would teach her a lesson. That night, my father didn't return. When I called his phone, I heard it ringing in the hospital parking lot. The ranger found it. Abandoned. Screen cracked. Left on the hood of the car. Next to it was something else. A single feather. Long, white, and strangely iridescent, gleaming like frost in moonlight. By morning, the news reported a forest fire had broken out near Sunset Campground. No clear cause. No lightning, no campfire. Just a blaze that rose out of nowhere, torching the area where Emma had been left. Tents were gone. Cars were melted husks. But not everything was lost in the fire. Something had been left behind. The ranger brought it to me, wrapped carefully in cloth. "This was found at the fire's edge," he said. "Untouched. It was Emma's toy bunny, still white, still clean. As if it had never been in the woods. There was a note tied to its neck with a red thread. 5 words, written in delicate handwriting. She is under my protection. My mother fainted when she saw it. And when she came to, she confessed something I never expected. She was real, she muttered, dazed. When I was a child, I saw her too. The Lady of the Pines. You knew? I asked, stunned. She found me once. When my own mother locked me outside in the snow, she said, voice shaking. She wrapped me in a white blanket, whispered that no child should suffer alone. Then my mother began to cry. I forgot. I buried the memory, and I became her. It was no longer just about Emma. This was generational. The cycle of cruelty masked as discipline. The wounds passed from mother to daughter, sister to sister. But something had returned to break that chain. A force older than time. A watcher in the woods. And she wasn't done yet. Not until every debt was paid. I watched my mother weep. Not the quiet, remorseful kind of crying, but the deep, shaking sobs of a woman who finally faced her own ghosts. She had seen her once, the Lady of the Pines, and now, after decades of silence and denial, she remembered. "She warned me," my mother whispered, voice raw. "Said if I ever let another child suffer as I did, she would return. Not to save me this time, but to judge me." My mother collapsed back in the hospital chair, her hands trembling. I didn't believe she was real. I thought it was a dream, a fantasy I made up to survive. But now there was no denying it. Emma's survival. The hand-woven blanket. The glowing eyes in the trees. The untouched toy in the ashes. Karma had risen in the form of a guardian and a judge. Later that night, as the hospital hallways dimmed and the machines beeped in rhythm, I felt something shift. Not in the room, in the air, as if the walls themselves were listening. Emma was asleep again, peaceful, safer than she'd been in days. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. That's when I saw it. A single white feather lying on the floor by the door. Identical to the one found near my father's abandoned phone. Except this one was fresh, still warm to the touch. I picked it up and immediately a cold wind blew through the room. The window had been closed. The vents silent. And then the lights flickered. When they came back on, I wasn't alone. She was there. Tall. Pale. Hair cascading down her back like moonlight. Her dress looked woven from mist and bark. Her eyes held centuries. The Lady of the Pines. She stood beside Emma's bed, not threatening, reverent, protective. I couldn't move, could barely breathe. "You remember," she said softly, not speaking aloud but within my mind. Her voice was like rustling leaves and falling snow. I nodded. "I never forgot," I whispered. She looked at Emma and placed a hand over her heart. "She carries the wound, but not the rot. You must keep it that way." I dared to ask, why her? Why save her? She turned to me, expression solemn. "Because she cried for help and no one came. Until me." A pause. "But now you came. That's what broke the chain." I didn't understand. "My mother, she also saw you." "Yes," the lady replied. "But she chose to forget. That is her curse." Then she showed me, not through words but visions, memory, a snowy night. My mother, no older than Emma, barefoot and shivering outside a locked cabin, crying, alone, until the lady came, wrapping her in warmth and whispering, "You are not forgotten." But as she grew older, my mother hardened. She used the same punishments on us she once endured, believing pain forged strength, believing love was weakness. And so the curse continued. Until now. The lady stepped back from Emma, her eyes piercing mine. "Justice is not cruelty," she said. "It is balance. Pain for pain. a mercy for mercy. And then she was gone. Just like that. The room fell still. The lights steady. The air no longer cold. In Emma's hand now lay the white feather, clutched tight like a promise. The next morning they found my father, or rather what was left of him, not torn, not burned, but silent, lying peacefully in a forest clearing, eyes closed as if asleep, hands folded across his chest, a white feather on his lips. No wounds, no struggle, just silence, as if someone had judged his soul and found it lacking. The news said it was natural causes, an unfortunate coincidence, but I knew better, and so did my mother. She didn't speak for days after they told her. She just sat by Emma's side holding her hand, because she knew she had been judged too. And maybe this was only the beginning. Grief wrapped around our family like ivy, tight, suffocating, impossible to ignore. The doctors called it a heart attack, a sudden, painless death in the woods. But I saw my mother's face when they said it. She knew. So did I. My father didn't die from nature. He died from judgment. And the forest had passed its verdict. Days passed. Emma began to smile again, small, fragile things like the sun after rain. But she never let go of the feather. She clutched it while sleeping like a talisman. My sister, however, unraveled. The guilt, maybe the fear, kept her awake at night. She jumped at shadows, locked the windows, refused to step outside after dark. One night I found her in the kitchen, crying. "It wasn't just Emma," she whispered. "I've done worse." "What do you mean?" I asked carefully. She shook her head. "Years ago, before I had Mia, there was a girl in my care. Foster system. Just a kid. She was quiet, scared. I didn't want her there. So I made her life miserable until she asked to leave." I stared at her. "She was placed in a new home," she continued. "But I heard later she ran away. They never found her." The silence that followed was brutal. "I thought it wasn't my fault," she choked out. "But now I see her face in my dreams. And the lady's too. She's coming for me, isn't she?" I didn't answer. 'Cause deep down we both knew the truth. Justice isn't only for what you do, but for what you refuse to stop. That night the air shifted again. Cold. Till. Time slowed in the hospital room and the shadows deepened. My mother was asleep in the chair beside Emma, and I sat awake, staring into the hallway, watching the darkness gather. Then I heard the whisper. Not words. A feeling. A sound like wind through pine needles. I stepped into the corridor, drawn by something ancient. And there she stood. The Lady of the Pines. Only this time she wasn't alone. Behind her were others, shapes faint and flickering. Children. Dozens of them. Silent. Watching. Each with a white feather. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. These were the forgotten. The abandoned. Punished and ignored. The children no one came back for. The lady stepped forward. Her eyes, fierce and soft all at once, met mine. "The cycle is old," she said. "Older than trees. Older than blood. It is passed from hand to hand, word to word." She looked past me, toward the room where my mother and Emma slept. "But it ends when someone chooses to remember." My voice cracked. "Then it ends with me." She nodded once. "Then a final choice must be made." Back in the room, my mother was waking. I helped her sit up, held her trembling hands. "There's something you need to see," I told her. I guided her to the window. Pine trees swayed in the moonlight, and between their trunks the lady stood waiting. My mother fell to her knees. "I was weak," she sobbed. "I let them hurt me. Then I became them. I made you hurt. I made her hurt." The lady said nothing, but the trees groaned around her. "She's not asking for your guilt," I said gently. "She's asking for your truth." My mother looked up. "What can I do?" I didn't know, but Emma did. She walked quietly to her grandmother, placed the white feather in her hand, and whispered, "Break the chain." Inside, the forest breathed, and somewhere in its depths the fire sparked again. That night the wind carried voices, not loud, not angry, just present, as if the forest was speaking in a language older than words, rustling through the pines, whispering through hospital vents, calling those who needed to answer. The lady had not left. She was waiting, waiting for one final act. My mother sat quietly, Emma's white feather in her lap, her gaze locked on the window where the trees danced in moonlight. "She's asking something of me," she whispered. I nodded. "Not punishment. A choice." She stared at me. "I don't know how to fix what I've done." "Maybe it's not about fixing," I said. "Maybe it's about surrendering, telling the truth, letting go of the rot." Outside, the forest pulsed with stillness, charged like a held breath before a storm. Then we heard it. A knock. Not on a door. On the soul. We stepped outside together, my mother, my sister, and me. Emma remained asleep, watched over by a nurse, and we sensed something greater than any human presence. The moon bathed the trees in silver. The air shimmered with energy. And at the forest's edge she stood, the Lady of the Pines. Around her the children again, silent, glowing, timeless. My mother walked forward alone. No one told her to. She simply knew. "I see you," she said softly. "And I remember now." She knelt. "I was broken, and I broke others. But I won't do it anymore. I won't teach pain. I won't justify cruelty. It ends now. With me." The lady stepped forward, placed a hand on my mother's head, and for a long time there was only silence. Then the children began to vanish, one by one, feathers drifting where they stood. Peaceful, released, until only the lady remained. She looked at me. "You chose truth." She looked at my sister. "You chose regret." She looked toward the hospital window where Emma slept. She will choose light. Then slowly she stepped backward and faded. Like mist beneath a rising sun, the forest grew quiet again. But something had shifted, not just around us, within us. The next day, my mother checked herself into a trauma recovery program. Voluntarily. She said she had things to face. My sister began therapy. She reached out to the adoption agency. She didn't expect forgiveness, but she wanted to know if the girl she'd pushed away was still alive. Emma began to laugh again. Not just little laughs, but full ones. Free and wild like wind through the trees. The white feather? It was gone. One morning it simply wasn't there. As if it had served its purpose. But sometimes when Emma hugs me tightly and rests her head against my chest, she whispers, "She's still watching." But not because I'm in danger. Just because she loves me. As for me, I don't go into those woods anymore. But I never fear them either. 'Cause I know now. There are guardians in the shadows. There is justice in the wind. And for every forgotten child, there will always be one who remembers.